Alright, so we are at the end of Germany turn 6, right before UK Pacific goes. And nothing's changed on the victory conditions, just 2 for the Axis and none for the Allies. Now, the Axis is getting very close to, I think they're within 11 of getting the economic victory of conditions, so, or victory objective. So, the Allies are going to have to start taking away some ground here. But let's look and see what happened on this turn. As far as the Russian battles, back and forth battles on the front, Germany just went on turn 6 and acquired all the front spaces that they lost back. Russia did pull out of Leningrad in hopes of using all those forces to bolster Moscow. There may be a big counterattack coming by Russia, but we'll have to do some math and look and see. Not else much going on this side. There's the German buy while I'm up here. They've strategically repositioned some of their subs in plains south. That Russian sub's been convoying Normandy. First round nothing, second round got rolled a 1, and then the third round rolled a 3, so you can only take 2, so it's taking a couple dollars away, but what else is that Russian sub going to do? And then I think this turn the British and US are coming as they are running out of time, since this is an 8-round game. Speaking of the British, they had 1 infantry in Iraq, so they assaulted Syria with attack and that infantry, and it was mutual destruction. They killed Italy, but Italy killed them. And in a turn of fair play, Italy attacked Ethiopia in the same manner with a bunch of planes and 1 infantry, and Britain got a hit, so that ended that conquest of Ethiopia. So in the Asian conflict here, since Russia invaded China up there, and there was Japanese units there, so that negates the Mongolia rule. So they came in, I think, with 5, and then the bomber. They eliminated the 2 Japanese, but the Japanese eliminated 3 of the Russians. So the Japanese themselves moving into Russia, threatening Leningrad or Stalingrad there. So they're beefing that up. And Japan moved up into Russia on the north side, and now that the Russians have broken the Mongolian pact, the rest of those Japanese forces will be applying their wares in Russia as well. And then here we've got some naval action. Japan came out and sank the UK Pacific subs, or not subs, transports. Then they took back Java, but they just don't have the units or the transports to get everything, so they're going to lose this transport again. But if they're trying to get to that economic value or victory objective, then they need these points. So they came in and got Celebes this turn, and I believe that transport is safe where it's at. The U.S. fleet has moved down here to Sea Zone 26 on the chip there, and it's time for Japan to make a strategic move. My first thought is I'm going to leave a destroyer here and all those planes and send my ships back to Japan. The thinking there is, if they do want to invade the Caroline Islands, maybe I can take out almost all their infantry, and then that's the end of the game for them over here, because infantry is a premium and there's nothing coming down the pipe. So U.S. is going to have to be strategic in their moves there so they don't lose their guys. Alright, so that is the way this looks here. And let me put this on the tripod and we'll do UK Pacific's turn. Oh yeah, before you do that, here's the other buys here. UK Pacific is buying a couple tanks because they're going to need to get into China here faster than they can walk. Japan, defensive buys, Britain, all that's going in the two factories in Africa and the Middle East. They're going to try and work that Africa thing back. It looks like my battery's about to die, so let me finish. There's the rest of the buys. China, if they're still alive, will get to buy a guy. And then Russia and the US. And all that US will be going on the East Coast to come to Europe. Alright, for UK Pacific's turn, we're going to grab a guy and an artillery as we pass by, and hopefully we can deal harshly with Malaya here. We got a TAC and a fighter. 1, 2, now they got 1, 2, 3, and they'll have to land back in Burma. But we got to take some points away from the Axis. We're going to send in 1 infantry and 1 artillery. I should have broke that chip down before I started. Alright, 1 infantry, 1 artillery here. And I guess we need to just send everything into Yunnan, the rest, right? Which will be 4 infantry, 3 artillery. We'll send 2 planes here and 1 plane up there. Break that chip down. Those 3 guys will be... There isn't any risk of Japan getting Calcutta, so... the only other attack move is going to be a freebie down here. This plane is going to come off of Australia and auto-kill that Japanese transport. Alright, so... let's do the first battle down here, where we will have 2 2s, a 3, and a 4. 4, and they get 2 hits. So outside of Japan getting 2 hits, they get none. Alright, I'm going to have to look. I think that's an objective too, to give them some extra money. Alright, so the other one is 2 2s and 2 3s. And wow, I threw that dice all the way across the table. Alright, for Shansteit, 1 hit. And they have 1 left, and they get nothing. Alright, so Japan is starting to show the weakness here of what units they have in the south. The other one up on top, let's just roll that fighter. Fighter hits, Japan's tank hits, so we'll lose an infantry. Alright. Alright. So there is the attacks. There shouldn't be 4 arrows, should be 3. Alright, so these planes will head back. These 3 guys step up. Those planes land there. Alright, so Japan's going to have to make some decisions on where to go here. And then down here really is nothing. We're going to move our fleet up. Not that Japan's tempted to come down and get it, but was that even in the viewfinder now that I look? Oh, yeah, it was. So I moved the fleet up here. Alright, so we're not going to place anything in Sydney. We're going to place everything else. Another transport and a sub. 2 tanks. Infantry, artillery. Alright, so constant thorn in Japan's side is the UK Pacific. So we will now come back at the end of Germany, turn 7. Alright, well, we are at the end of Germany, turn 7, and there's only 1 more turn left, and we are going to call the game, and I will explain why. Turn 7 Germany, the Axis has 2 victory objectives. They got within 7 of the economic victory objective, but it looks as though the U.S. here is poised to keep that from happening. Do they have an opportunity to come in and maybe get something here on the Chinese coast? I doubt it, because probably all of Japanese Navy is going to pool up there in the Philippines, and then there'll be a big conflict there, but that won't get any victory points or victory objectives. So Japan took Malaya back. They tried to take Yunnan back from all the UK Pacific units. Lost all their land units and several of their planes. So China is back on the board with 1 infantry. Japan did clean out the Russians up there. They're spreading out with their tank and up here into Siberia. So it's a lot of ones. It doesn't, but it all helps get towards that economic victory objective. But I don't think there's time. Italy is defending here well, but Britain is building on both sides of them. However, the real objective here, the U.S. and Britain came across. Britain took Morocco, and the U.S. took Gibraltar from the Italians, losing, 4 units, maybe 5 units. But then there was the U.S. put a blocker up here to a destroyer to keep this German fleet that was up in Sea Zone 112 from coming down into this battle. So, good blocking move. However, with the subs and planes that Germany had amassed, they attacked the U.S. and British combined forces, dealing them the death blow. Germany has a fighter and 2 bombers that survived. So, with that in mind, the German fleet just sailed down here, from 112 in the non-combat turn to sit there, because the U.S. only has transports. So that means they can't do anything. So if they build a navy, turn 7, then turn 8, they can only get back to Gibraltar. So that was the death blow there to the Allied effort on the Europe side of the map. The Russians did counterattack. So you can see here on that first counterattack, they actually lost a little bit more than they took out the Germans. But then the Germans counterattacked and cleaned up the Russians, but they lost all of their infantry mechs and into their artillery. And that's what's left here in Smolensk, is that armor. The infantry moved here on turn 7, so they can't reach Moscow. So that leaves the armor and those 6 infantry to hit Moscow on the next turn. And there really isn't too many planes. Oh, there's 3 German planes. So most of the Air Force for Germany, came over here to deal with the Allied fleet. The other reason why we'll call that is Britain's chances of eliminating Italy are now gone, because I was going to use this Italian fleet to wipe out Gibraltar, so there'd be no U.S. forces for those transports. I don't need to do that anymore because they're trapped there. So we'll just reinforce Cairo this turn, and Britain's not going to get Cairo back. So another reason to call it. So the Axis ends up with 2 victory objectives, which is North Africa, which they got, I think, on round 2. Maybe it was the beginning of round 3. And then they got the China victory objective by capturing all Chinese territories. And I believe that was on round 4. And then since then, it's basically just been defense by the Axis. And it was a fun game. I think on that China point, Russia probably would need to send units sooner into China. I think I was too focused on the Germans, but honestly, Germany's on Moscow's doorstep, so I don't know how much really they could have sent, without putting more at risk. But either way, that's how it was played. Really, there was nothing that the Allies could have done on the North Africa victory objective. Once that Toronto raid failed miserably, that was the end. And actually, it wouldn't have mattered because I had the German fleet here off Gibraltar that was going to come in and help Italy get that point. So that being said, I think that's a foregone conclusion that at the very least the Axis would have won 1-0. But they pulled that second one out in China at the expense really of everything down south, because they just didn't have the units available, to take and hold islands, and they had to build fleet to fend off the U.S. So there you have it. It's Global 40. It was the Young Grasshopper Tournament Edition. It was an 8-round game, and each team has, I think it's 10 victory objectives that they can obtain. So that is the game set, the rule set, I should say, that they will be using in Toronto at the tournament next year. Hope you enjoyed watching Combat Theater here, and keep rolling dice.